All right. Hey, I know he's a little fancy now recording, but he's really handy. Very, very handy. Okay, so my name's Cece. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right. Yeah. It's funny is that I'm like, hey, I need to talk to you, and you're like, oh, well, my knowledge is really for like 2011 to 2014. I'm like, you don't understand. That is like the hole in my knowledge is mostly in this time.
Yeah, well, my knowledge is also a lot faded considering it's that old.
It has been 9-ish years.
Yeah, no kidding. And I was never as hardcore about it as some of my other fellow mates, like reflected Garrison and some of them. So I'll try and help you as much as I can, but I don't know exactly what you're looking for. So
yeah, I'm not gonna try and throw you like curveballs, like, oh, well, it's what frame do you hit Y to do the? I'm like, no, I'm not that. I don't care that much.
No.
But I just want to get some understanding about like what was going on in the community in that time, because so I guess let's just go ahead and get started. When did you first get into speedrunning?
Yeah, and around like. Well, I started doing like 16-star runs probably in like 2009, 2010. I saw the 16-star task, I think by Riku, but I didn't know it was a task at the time. And I was like, I could probably do that. I can probably do the BLG up the stairs and SM64. And really the only resource I had was Miles on SDA, who ended up being a cheater in splicing 16-star. But yeah, that was where I first got started. And then I found Speedruns Live after I graduated college in May 2011, only because I was following Giano, one of the co-founders for Melee, because I played Super Smash Bros. Melee.
Mm-hmm.
So I was following his YouTube and found a thing to Speedruns Live, and I found out people did not just 16-star, but full game runs of Super Mario 64.
Nice.
So that's when I really got kind of entrenched in the community, was right around that time when Speedrun Live in 2011. And then for Donkey Kong Country 2, honestly, it was just a group of friends. We just liked finding games and racing them, and that just ended up being one of them. In like the fall of 2011. Garrison, Ness Kamikaze, and a couple others, Cryptic Jackknife, we just started racing the game. We didn't know really much about it, but we just liked racing it and started looking up some stuff.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually 100% where I was gonna go with this. So how did you know those guys? Cryptic Jackknife, Garrison, Ness Kamikaze, everyone else?
Through Speedruns Live, the Irish channel and stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, Ness Kamikaze was probably like my first friend on there. He would just race anything. He was known for literally like he'll just race like any game, pretty much. And he did like the Donkey Kong Country series, so I played with him. Garrison, he just kind of got interested in it, probably doing stuff other than Super Metroid at that time, just another game he wanted to pick up. And Cryptic Jackknife, he was probably the best at that point, and he knew a little bit more than all of us. We were just playing casually through the game, basically. Yeah, honestly, it was just through Speedruns Live, and it was at that time when I first joined, there weren't like it was an IRC and there were sub channels, but almost no one used sub channels at that point. It was literally just like 100 people in one chat, and you would ask, "Hey, does anyone want to race DKC2?" And somebody like, "Yeah, I'm in."
Just a bunch of random people. Yeah, sure.
Pretty much, I mean, it was small enough at that point where even the race bot at that time, all of the races were in one channel. So like even if you were like you wanted to see who was the entrance or like what was the race result of something, it was all in the main channel. There was only one channel where it all happened. It eventually sequestered and there became, like a DKC channel and some other stuff. But it was a little more tight-knit back then, where of the 100 people on there, there were 50 active people, and you knew who most of those people were.
Yeah. Yeah, I got into speedrunning around like 2014, 2015, which is a little bit after the heyday of SRL. So whenever I got around to it and I got on SRL, I was like, oh, this is kind of, it's kind of not as great as I thought it would be. But
no, it's just an IRC. I mean, it was just a place where actually people could have a community, and now it's all shifted to Discords and everything like that. It's just different. It's not worse or better. It's just different.
No, I gotcha. Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
Huh.
So, something I wanted to just mention was, Ness Kamikaze and Cryptic Jackknife were names that I see a lot on Speed Demos Archive. I've gone through a bunch of forums for both DKC 1 and 2, and I think it's funny to see names appear like in multiple places. Like, oh yeah, it's good to see that you left a footprint. Like I can tell that you guys were around and passionate about this. So I don't know, just kind of fun.
No, yeah. I really don't know what other Cryptic Jackknife did at that time. I know he ran one other game. I can't remember what it was outside of the Donkey Kong Country series. And Ness has had just a ton of games. He used to submit to like Twin Galaxies. I think he had the Twin Galaxy stuff for DKC games.
Interesting.
Submitted probably like in 2007 or something, like really, really old.
Gotcha. I bet 2007. Jesus.
I don't know how old. Don't quote me on that. He did a lot of games and been doing it for a long time.
I gotcha. Okay. So, I want to ask, when you first started doing DKC2 speedruns on Speedruns Live, did anybody seem to know that there was a Japanese community out there?
Cryptic Jackknife did, and we sort of knew about it. But it wasn't until probably like a couple weeks or stuff after we raced and we started actually kind of like wondering what was going on. I don't know who went through Nico Nico and found so basically there were 3 really, really strong Japanese runners at that time. There were much more who were way better than the US or English speaking community. But I would think the biggest thing that actually got us jump started was there was a video of Costella, and he had like a mid 42, and I think it was the second best run at the time. And we basically just copied everything from those videos. We had no explanations of them, but we tried to copy as much as we could. And so I don't know when we really got in touch. Eventually, like in 2012 or 13, they started joining some of our races, and we did have some interaction with them. But I couldn't tell you when the first time like we got our hands on a video of Costella. I'm actually just looking through, and apparently Costella raced with us in 2012, like early 2012. So we probably knew pretty early. And we knew they were like miles ahead of us in understanding and in their times.
Yeah. Was it hard to adapt to their style and their tricks and things? Because they have like wrong warps and all that stuff. Like, did you guys know about that stuff at the time?
So when we first started racing, no. But once we started looking at their videos, we knew they existed. One of the funny stories was, though, I think Cryptic Jackknife, he either played on PAL originally, because he's from Australia.
Okay.
And maybe he swapped, but he thought that one of the tricks was actually like frame perfect or something, and it's the Castle Crush. I guess you can call it a wrong warp, which saves like 4 minutes. And he was telling us originally, like, oh, it's really super impossible and all of this stuff. And eventually we got like a video of it, and I just tried it out, or one of us tried it out. And we're like, wait, this is super easy. Like, we could just save 4 minutes. Like, none of this is actually all that hard. So most of the tricks were actually not that bad to like simulate. And I believe we had one Japanese player try and help us out and like translate and try and describe some of the things. And his name was Syn, S-Y-N.
Dude, shout out to Syn right now.
What'd you say?
But shout outs to Syn out there trying to bridge the gap.
The biggest thing I remember him showing us was actually in K. Rool that you can get the 2 blue Kongs if you press select. Like if you team throw and get hit by the blue shot by K. Rool, your Kong like becomes permanently blue. It doesn't do anything, you're just blue. I would honestly say, so we knew some wrong warps existed, but we didn't have like the greatest understanding on how they worked. And 2 Tassers, Tompa, who I'm sure you know of because you've done lots of research, and Arn the Great. Arn the Great had done some work on the 1.0 version of DKC2, like a task of it.
Right.
The speedrun uses the 1.01 version. or the 1.1, regardless, the patched version
Yeah.
is where the wrong warps work. So he didn't have much knowledge, but he had already built out like the Lua script, which shows the identities of all of the objects. And that's how the wrong warps work in terms of like you have to have a matching ID with the bonus barrel for it to not understand where to send you and basically exit the level.
Right.
And I think Garrison probably was the one who looked through and used Arn the Great's Lua scripts. And there were a couple others. I know Crystal helped a little bit. It might have been Kipples. Again, this was so long ago, I don't know who did it.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
But I know they utilized Arn's Lua scripts to like look at the IDs for some wrong warps. Like some we could figure out on our own just by watching the videos. Like Chain Link Chamber we could figure out. Slime Climb I think we had already figured out. Like that one was pretty easy. We could just copy them. But Mudhole Marsh doing it as Diddy, we like couldn't figure out without the Lua script, and understanding that we needed specific IDs for it to work.
Okay. All right. Where do we go from here? Okay. So then you guys are picking up the pieces and you guys are trying to understand and you're figuring out the wrong warps and things. Okay. When do we see reflected, and is Claude, do you know who Claude is? I guess
yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a stupid question. I'm sure you do. When did they sort of show up to the scene? Do you remember?
I'm glad I have like all the races up and I can actually look.
Yeah, I think if you click on their names, like even on the leaderboard, and then you can see when their first races are.
Well, no, I'm just looking through my races with Reflected and when he got like really good.
Gotcha.
So Reflected was around in. It looks like he started around 2012, mid 2012, and he just started grinding. Like I can see even here in May, he's got like a 48 or 47, and then by August he's hitting like 43s. Which at that time, getting like a 42 was insanely good. Like the only people who had 42s were basically Costella, Riz, and Drum, I think. Maybe a couple others, but those are the three big names that always sat out to me. Riz being the best, Costella being the second best, and Drum. He played a bunch of other Donkey Kong Country games too. But it looks around like mid 2012. There were a couple people, Kipples, Reflected. I don't know when Claude didn't join a bunch of races. So I don't have a good. He mainly grinded the game as opposed to.
Yeah, I see him in April of 2013.
Yeah, so he probably came a little later. I can follow up with him and ask like when he joined and some other stuff if you want.
I mean, just going off of the stuff from Speedruns Live, I can look at his profile and I see that he did a lot of runs in 2013 and 2014, which means that he probably would have shown up a little later than Reflected, because Reflected started running in 2012.
Yeah,
it looks like
Reflected was definitely earlier.
Yeah. Could you maybe describe both of those runners and like either their play styles or anything about them?
They're both kind of very similar in terms of they grinded a lot. Anyone who's in the top of any speedrun game, essentially they'll sit there and grind ILs. The biggest difference I would say is that Claude is more of a lab monster in terms of he would try and find new ideas or strategies. And I'd say Reflected was more of he knew what the best strategies were, either from Riz or from somebody else finding it, like Kipples or Claude, and he would execute.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. They just put thousands and thousands of hours into the game, just like Void, just like all of them.
What I think is funny is that Claude on his stream layout would be like ironic, like, oh, this is irony. I'm approaching maximum irony. Like, apparently Claude was saying that he ran the game ironically in some way.
That's just Claude.
Yeah, yeah. I'm about to say, I think it's just his sort of style of humor per se, but I always thought it was funny. And I talked to DG's, and DG's was like, "Oh yeah, well, he would just turn the console on, and in his first run, he would get world record."
No. Absolute grind monster. But you have to in this game.
Yeah, no, I believe it.
It's just like any speedrun. It doesn't matter what it is. They're all take thousands of hours if you want to be the best.
I'm sure, absolutely. Okay. So you were around in this time. Could you maybe tell me why the races, the community races, really died off in 2013? Or was it 2014?
I don't know. People just move on, play other things.
No, you don't understand. There were like 3 races a day for 3 years, and then on like April 2013, there was the biggest race they've ever had, and then there was no more races for like 5 months. like it's like the biggest just stop, like the biggest roadblock I've ever seen, where it's just so much momentum and there's a big, everyone comes together and then nothing.
If you're talking about Donkey Kong Country 2 in itself, or like overall speedruns live?
No, I just meant Donkey Kong Country 2. I can go find it, but I don't know. Maybe you weren't in that race or in particular. I just thought maybe you had an idea of what's going on, because I saw that and I thought, what in the world happened? Let me see if I can find it. I think it's 2013 or 2014. But yeah, like I said, there was like races like every other day for years.
There was, I mean,
Yeah.
again, it was more of a community thing in terms of, Juice and Reflected, they would play all the time and they would race. And then, I don't know, it's more of a community thing. And then when those people stop racing or they just don't care to race, it just kind of dies out. There was the Speedruns live seasons, and I think Donkey Kong Country 2 it was one of them.
Oh, that might be.
They tried this idea of like seasons, and they picked like 5 games, and one of them was Donkey Kong Country 2 to try and incentivize racing, but that didn't have anything to do with it. No, and a big race can just happen randomly in terms of whether it be, like the Japanese community, they had like events, and that might have been just an event that we did. It's like, hey, let's try and pull everyone together, and let's have a one big race on this Saturday or something. So that could be why that race happened, but there was nothing that like caused the end. It's more of just people move on.
That's fair.
And then some people quit just because they're like, dude, I don't feel like regrinding this. Whenever a new big skip is found, there's going to be a split in terms of half the people are like, dude, I don't feel like going back and improving my time, and then the other half they're like, oh, now I have a free minute save I can do. I'll grind out a new time, but they may not want to race. That whole racing mentality kind of slipped away during that time period to begin with.
Yeah, it's weird how that works out sometimes. But hey, real quick, I'm just gonna send you. I found the thing. There is a 38-person race. I think the largest in DKC history, DKC2 history, and then there's no more until September 10th, from April 12th to December.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Like it's this huge gap, and I think it's so crazy because Anyways, we'll move on.
Nah.
I just thought it was so nuts. But anyways,
not surprising to me at all.
Okay. I know we talked about some of the other wrong warps. Did we talk about Hothead Hop and Mudhole Marsh wrong warp?
Hothead Hop was pretty calm in terms of that one. We just figured out.
So you just had the idea that like, oh yeah, we just need a bonus barrel and an invisible object, and then.
Oh, you're talking about 102, I think. Are you talking about 102 or any percent?
Wasn't Hothead Hop is a wrong warp in any percent, isn't it?
Yeah, right at the beginning. That one's just really, really straightforward. That one's not bad. We could just copy the videos we had from the Japanese runners.
Okay, but they already had discovered
about stuff like. So I'm gonna get real technical on you, and stop me if you have any questions. I don't know how familiar you are with the game.
Okay.
So in Mudhole Marsh, the way it was difficult with Diddy, as opposed to there's a Dixie method and a Diddy method, and the Dixie method loses like 3 seconds because you have to swap Kongs and you have to wait for a beetle to get up. But the Diddy method doesn't require that. And the only way it works, and the only way we found this is through the Lewis scripts, is when you throw an object like the cannonball at an enemy, it creates a little star, like a red and white little star animation when you like kill an enemy or something collides.
Okay.
That creates an ID. For a brief, the 1 second that little sprite appears, it creates an ID because it's an object.
Right.
You need to scroll the screen. There are 3 beetles in a row. You throw the cannonball at the first beetle. It creates that little sprite. You need to scroll on the 3rd beetle as that sprite is still there. So that its ID goes from, instead of say, 3, now it's become a 4. And that's the difference between the trick working and the trick not working.
That doesn't sound fun. Is it hard or is it easy?
It just takes timing. The biggest difficulty was we would throw the cannonball, we would watch the videos, and people had theories like, oh, you need to pan the camera to the right or the left, or you did X and Y, and we could never make it consistent. And it wasn't until, I want to say Garrison or Reflected, either or Kipple, someone took the time in Arn the Great's script and was like, hey, this is exactly how it works. Other people had tried and like even used the scripts but couldn't figure it out. I know Crystal had tried and she had a really convoluted setup, but it really didn't work. But no, it wasn't until we really understood the IDs for that one to work.
Okay.
And then I want to say pretty much everything after that, like any of the other wrong warps have come, they've all come from that method, whether it be a new one. Like, I don't know how Closty found Bramble Scramble wrong warp, but I'm assuming he was using those Lewis scripts and basically in the lab trying to figure out if one could work. Because there were a bunch of levels where it was theoretical to happen, but they couldn't, we couldn't get the IDs correct, or you couldn't keep the object where you needed to, and using those scripts is basically how they found them.
Okay, that answers the question.
Find the correct IDs.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And setups.
Okay. Okay. Then I guess the last thing is sort of after 2013 into 2014 or so is when Claude and Reflected really are going head to head, back and forth a lot, and they're just pushing the time down to where did they end up on? Like a 40-37, I think, with Claude's 40-37 at the end of 2014. Does that ring a bell? After Bramble Scramble and all that stuff?
I was about to say sounds about right, because Bramble Scramble was found somewhere in there.
Yeah, that's like July, I think. But
and it was right after SGDQ. That's all I remember, is right after SGDQ of that year, Closty posted a video.
Nice.
Or it happened like a week before, and we're like, no, we're not learning this. Forget this.
We'll look into this when we get home.
Well, our run wasn't scheduled. They were way ahead of schedule, and they asked Garrison and I to do it. So,
yeah. What year would that have been? 2014. Yeah, you and Twig. Yeah, you and Garrison. Yeah. We're doing. That was any percent. Yeah, because 47-48. Okay. All right.
They all blend together.
I think you'll watch that one.
Don't.
It wasn't good.
It is what it is.
Okay, that's fair. I'll respect it. Okay. And so tell me about sort of after Bramble Scramble, what it was like seeing Claude and Reflected kind of just knock it out of the park.
At this point, I was pretty much removed and only just watching from the sidelines. I would just, it is kind of what I was describing earlier, just a grind. Because getting out of World 1 with a good time with the strategies they're using is, maybe 1 in 10 runs. Maybe.
Okay.
And then the game is just absolutely brutal from there on. It really just came down to execution and the amount of hours they could put in. Because I'm sure you talked to GG's. You're aware of Crow in World 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then obviously Slime Climb Wrong Warp. That one was not nearly as consistent as it was. It took them a long time to get really good at that one, which only saves 2 seconds.
Goodness. Wait, really?
Yeah, the Slime Climb Wrong Warp only saves 2 or 3 seconds at most.
Jesus.
And it's incredibly difficult. If you look at the wiki, I hope it's still there. It's if you're learning this game, do not attempt this trick. Because we had a ton of people who would try and learn the game, and they try and learn it in order. And they would get to the 5th level, and they're like, "Oh, it's a wrong warp. I'll just learn this." And they spend like 4 hours trying to learn this trick that saves 2 seconds, and they just quit the game. They're like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. No. Work harder, or work smarter, not harder.
So that was always the meme of don't learn that. But no, honestly, they would just, 5-6 hours a day or something like that. It's not true because they had full-time. Well, Reflect that full-time job, but no, it was just tons and tons of hours, and eventually they get the run. Sorry, I don't really have much more to say about
No,
it.
that's fine. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. Couple things I wanted to touch on. So what in particular about Slime Climb is so difficult?
Oh, the rattly double jumps. So you have to. It's. God, I don't even know how to do it. I'll be completely. I've never done it.
Okay.
You have to hop onto rattly and then do a particular double jump. I believe it's what they call a true double jump, which is like it's a really weird input. In terms of like you have to be buffering something, and there's no visual cue for it. To be honest, they joke about how Donkey is about feel, not so much like a visual cue. And Rattly is probably the number one thing you could say about that in terms of the true double jump. And then I believe it's also, I don't know, it's just insane because you have to get that double jump, get the beetle, and then go down immediately. And I think you're even timed to do it. And it's all just regret spend. Like if you miss it, you lose 15 plus seconds to reset immediately. You get like one mess up attempt on the double jump, I think. And even then you've basically lost all the time you've had.
Yeah. Yeah, I just watched it again and I'm like, oh yeah. So the big jump, is that what you're talking about? The double jump thing?
Yep.
Okay.
So normally the way Rattly works is you have to hold the A button and he charges up and then you can jump up. Whereas this, you're gonna buffer the A button and then you like jump on the ground and let go of A, and it tricks the game obviously, or like it thinks you're still on the ground and then you can jump again. And you need a lot of height from it. Like you can't have a poor jump.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I noticed that you gotta get a lot of height on that, and you gotta at least grab the rope up there. And if you don't, then yeah. So definitely can see where that could be a problem. Okay.
Oh,
and
did
then
I say slime climb? I am saying the completely wrong level. This
Okay.
is where top sail trouble 1-5.
Okay, hang on.
That makes a lot more sense.
Okay, there we go. Top sail trouble.
Yeah.
I was like, I was like, Rattly, isn't that the snake guy?
Yeah, no, this is why you gotta call me out. They're both like rain or like water theme. Yeah, no, slime climb is free. Slime climb is free.
Okay. So then let me find top
God,
sail
dude.
trouble.
It's been too long.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's top sail trouble 1-5.
Wrong word. I'm gonna go look up a video real quick.
Yeah, and
By Mike Canis.
yeah.
Is this a 2-hour tutorial?
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
When I said let me see if I can find it real quick in terms of is there still the warning? Yeah, here you go. Look at the warning at the top of
Do
this.
not don't you even fucking dare.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah, it saves 4 seconds.
Which is crazy because this has the warp barrel, so it's even free. It's okay. That's
well, I mean, they all have warp barrels. Everything in the first 2 worlds has a warp barrel.
Yeah.
You're just canceling out the animations of going to the like middle warp screen and stuff like that, but it's just not worth it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm trying to see if anyone actually show that this is optimal. Is this going to show me the wrong warp here? Oh, this. Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, definitely need to get up there, and then you need to be able to clash. Then okay, got it.
Yeah, once you get up there, I think the trick is relatively trivial. It's more of getting up there in the time. And then the clash shown there is a lot more difficult than it looks. Like there's a slower version of it.
These clashes are pretty. They just seem tough to me because it's all about the timing.
It's
Right.
really not that. So it depends on who you're using. So Dixie, the way it works is basically you throw something, you let
Mhm.
go, and then you re-hold the button. Dixie's throw animation is so long though, you have all the time in the world. Like
Okay.
once you've pressed Y, you have like a full 1 second to let go and repress.
Oh, okay. So that
Whereas
sounds like it's free.
Diddy, if you watch like the Mudhole wrong warp, you have to be facing backwards, and they basically the beetle has to like get right behind you,
Mhm.
and then you have to throw and let go because he like throws it backwards first for half a second.
Mm,
But his window for letting go and repressing is a lot tighter.
gotcha. Okay.
It's still not that bad though.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Okay.
not like you did the video on Donkey Kong Country 1. It's not a frame perfect trick
Yeah.
and not 7 of them. So
That's true. Okay. I guess just Crow. You said Crow is difficult, and I'm guessing
Crow is
because
just luck. It's
yeah,
luck.
it's just RNG cycles, and if he drops an egg on you or not.
Whether it's real or not. So the first 2 hits are
God.
guaranteed, and then he has the second phase, and you require 2 more eggs,
Mhm.
and it's just random. So you just jump on the egg, and every fake egg you get is minus 2 or 3 seconds.
Okay, not terrible, but it's not good for an optimized
For
game.
anyone going for like a world record though, when there's only 15 or 20 seconds on the table at that time, any basically more than one fake egg or that you're just resetting. So you can
Mhm.
spend hours. We used to joke about Kipples. He would literally stream for like 2 hours and never leave World 1.
Dude.
And he would have like 200 viewers and back in 2013 for never even leaving World 1. We're like, what the hell?
Yeah, dude, it was different back then. So
Yeah.
nuts.
I mean, it still happens today. I'm sure if you watch if you look at any top SM64 runners, those are all
Oh yeah,
people who grind nonstop. They rarely leave Womps, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
I,
Okay, good. Okay.
nah, you're good.
Okay. So I guess last thing is that I've heard several people say that Donkey Kong Country 2 is a really hard game. And I'm curious because I think I own it somewhere. It's been a long time since I played it. I don't remember it being like incredibly difficult, but then again, I was a child and I was dumb, so what do I know? But but yeah, I guess maybe give me some insight on why everyone says that this game is like so brutally difficult.
I think that's a misnomer. Casually, I don't think it's that bad.
Okay.
The individual levels, and the reason I'll say that is because you can save in between most levels.
Mm-hmm.
There's only a couple difficult stretches where you can't save, like where you go into a new world and you either have to make it to a flight spot where you can go back to a previous world and save,
Right.
or you need to find the next save point. So at most, you need to beat like 3 levels
Okay.
without saving. So casually, I don't think it's too bad. Um, from a speed run perspective, though, I'd say it's pretty difficult. Just because there's very little downtime, I would say, in terms of it's not like once you get to a certain point in the run that you're home free. Like
Mm,
everything can kill your run.
gotcha.
Um, the good part about this run is though there's very little randomness past Crow. So once you've beaten Crow 1, like you make it out of World 1,
Mm-hmm.
there is very, very little randomness between that and the end. So past the 2-minute mark or 2:30 mark, 2:10 if you're really good, you're pretty much not going to get screwed by randomness. The only other random part in the entire rest of the game is Crow 2 spawns. So the World 5 boss,
Okay.
it'll give you a barrel and it'll either be on the left, middle, or right. And that loses you maybe a couple seconds. But it's not like A Link to the Past where you get to Aghanim 20 minutes in
Mm, yeah.
and you can lose a minute 30 because of blue balls.
Jesus. Okay. Okay. So it's just Crow. Crow's just an asshole.
Yes, yes, he is. But Crow 2 is not nearly as bad. You're
Okay.
talking 3 seconds, maybe 5 seconds at worst when you're
Okay.
35 minutes into a run or something like that, or I guess 30 minutes into a run.
Okay.
It's not nearly as brutal as other speed games where randomness can either just straight up kill your run, like you can't even continue, or it's minutes and it's completely out of your control.
Gotcha.
But overall, I don't think the game is that difficult in terms of like a platformer. mainly because it lets you save everywhere. Like the individual levels, they might be a little difficult, but it's not nearly as bad as something like Battletoads or some of the other
Yeah.
brutal games.
Yeah, definitely some of those early games are just fucking. They're quarter eaters, is what they're supposed to be. They're just put on home consoles, but
well, the difficulty there is to lengthen the game. Because if they did give you autosaving everywhere, you might beat it in a couple hours, and your parents just spent $60 on this new game that was supposed to last you weeks. So that's where a lot of that difficulty stuff comes in.
Absolutely. Okay. I guess trying to think, is there anything else I want to get from you before I let you go? Any particularly hard stages you think in the run? From your time, which ones would you say are some of the harder ones?
I'm sure you're gonna have a lot of people talk about Parachute Panic, or like if there was one level I would focus on that one, and like the different strategies that came from that, and basically how many hits you're taking. So like there are lots of safer strats where you take 2 to 3 hits, and then there's strats where you take like no hits essentially.
Gotcha.
And I think it's called 1D, or like 1 damage boost, was essentially the best strategy. Only TAS does no hit, which is not going to happen. But
yeah,
that stage is incredibly difficult. Toxic Tower is probably the biggest skill set you can have. Like if you watch someone, it's the 6th world, I guess, the last level in there before the showdown. So you start off as the snake, and you have to do a ton of double jumps, which, as I was saying earlier, are very difficult.
Yep.
Like there are easier versions of the double jumps, but there are a couple that require you to do either a true double jump or a slight variation, which are very awkward to do. A lot of them require clawing, where you have to like be holding Y, because you're holding Y the whole time, and you have to be jumping and holding A, or buffering A. So you have that entire snake section, which starts off, and then it goes into a parrot section, which eventually they led into like camera manipulations to like get past bees very, very narrowly, and you only have one Kong, so if you get hit, you're dead. And the spider section's free. Web Woods, you're gonna hear about that one a lot.
Yep.
In talking with people, just because it's scary. Again, you're jumping into enemies to damage boost to get another jump, and if you miss the jump, or if you miss your quick plat, pressing L and R to make a platform underneath you, you're dead. Those are kind of like the big 3 run killers, at least from like a platforming standpoint. But any of the new Arctic Zip, I don't know if you're going to cover that.
Yeah, it's going to be in the video.
Yeah, that one I'm sure is just killing everyone's runs. I know Via has been grinding a lot. I don't think they have difficulty with the new Castle Crush, the newer version of that skip. I think people have figured that one out to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, that one definitely seems like it has a lot of pieces moving, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like it's terribly, terribly difficult. So
it requires precise timing on making sure the cutlass is where he's supposed to be, and the timing on that.
Exactly.
I'd say Mudhole Marsh is still insane, just because you're rolling into the swamp.
Oh yeah.
And okay. It's just scary. Yeah, I think those are probably the big ones that I can think of that are still valid today.
All right. Okay. One last thing is, would you recommend we talk to anybody in particular? Like, is there anyone you're like, oh man, if you want to do a video on Donkey Kong 2 history or Donkey Kong Country 2 history, you need to talk to.
I was about to say, I'll ask you, who have you talked to so far? Or have you tried to?
I have talked to Void, Dustpan, DG's, Essentia, and you. I've also reached out to Tonkatsu, and he's gonna be my my mouthpiece to the Japanese community.
Yep.
I'm trying to get Arn the Great to talk to me. He hasn't responded to me yet. Claude told me no, and Reflected hasn't responded yet either.
Yeah, Reflected probably won't get back to you. I don't think he has any interest in anything speedrunning anymore.
Yeah, that's okay. So
you've got a good base of. That's cool that Essentia talked to you, because she was the only English runner before us, on SDA at that time.
Yep. That was kind of my long shot. I don't know why, but I guess because it was 13 years ago, I was kind of like, there's no way she's gonna talk to me, right? You know. But I reached out and she was like, yeah, sure, I'd love to. It's like, oh, awesome.
Yeah,
cool.
She strayed more on the glitchless side. No, I can't really think of. Obviously the claw would have been great. Reflective would have been too. I don't think Garrison has any interest. That would have been probably the only person I would say, but he's staying off social media and stuff for like a month. So
I heard DG's was like, hey, I think he's doing some sort of hiatus.
Yeah, he is. And I can maybe I'll text him and see if he has any interest.
It's all good. If you do, you can. If you don't worry about it. So
yeah, that would be really the only person, just because Garrison, he has such a wide spectrum of games.
Yeah, he was really helpful in the first DKC video we did. He didn't do a voice call, but we did go back and forth with text messages, and I asked him a bunch of questions and he gave me a bunch of answers and resources. So
yeah, he is definitely that would be the only person I would say is Garrison.
Okay.
But
awesome. Well, I really appreciate you talking to me. You definitely helped fill in some gaps in my knowledge.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry, I was mixing some stuff up. It's been too long.
God. It's all good. I'm just glad we got it. We got the right answer in the end. So
yeah.
All right, here. Let me